Welcome back, y'all. So today I'm going to talk about the 5 things I despise about the Subaru WRX STI. So getting right off the bat, number 5, gas mileage. As I said in the previous video, the best I've gotten out of tank of gas was about 24 miles of the gallon, and that was putting along on the back roads, you know, doing about 55, 60 the whole way. Typically I average about 20 to 21 miles of the gallon, sometimes 22 if it's an all interstate drive, but really on the interstate it doesn't get much better because of the RPM that the car sits at on our interstate speeds, which, you know, the speed limit here is 75 on the interstate, you know, so 85, 90. It usually is spinning right there in the peak torque area of the, you know, where just the slightest amount of throttle and you're in boost. So gas mileage in the interstate's really not that great compared to around town. So high fuel cost. And with the E85, it's getting about 16 to 17 at best, which it's still, that equates to actually a little bit better cost because E85 is $1 cheaper than premium. So it times out to where E85 is actually better still, even though you know, at the time you feel like you're filling up more often, which you are, but you're spending less every time you fill up. So anyway, moving on. Number 4, maintenance. So, you know, the motors, short blocks, they don't have great oiling. Bearings are known for issues. They contaminate and break down the oil faster because of the RPMs they turn consistently, the higher RPMs. So you have to change the oil on a, you know, about a 3,000 mile interval, which back in the day that was normal, you know, 15, 20 years ago. But by today's standards, most cars are, you know 7,500 to 10,000 mile oil changes. So you do spend more on regular maintenance. That, you know, just the oil changes is the big one. There are other things that you have to maintain and upkeep. Transmission fluid. You don't want to. I'll be having to do that soon because probably about 30,000 miles. So I'll probably be doing that this spring or maybe this summer because the transmission is very complex, I would say, compared to most, because it has a center differential that's electronically controlled. You got the front differential in there. Just a lot of things going on in that transmission. So you want to maintain it properly. They are pretty known to be pretty well bomb-proof for the power that these can have. But you want to take care of it because, you know, the transmission, you got to tear everything apart to get that out. Anyway, moving on. Number 3. This kind of goes with the cost of the car, but rattles. This car has rattles everywhere. So center console, it rattles going down the road. Sometimes if you I'll just rest my arm on it to stop it. At certain speeds, the back dash will rattle. I did do a video on how to minimize that, but that doesn't get rid of it all. The only way to really get rid of it all is completely tear the back dash off and just go through the whole thing, foam and everything, as far as with like foam tape or whatever. It's a pain. I haven't got around to it. I probably will. It rattles so that, like, this has gotten loose over time because of all the rattles. It vibrates going down the interstate and you really can't identify what's behind you. You can see cars, but you know, if you're trying to see if that was a cop that was following you, you can't tell. So there's lots of rattles in this car and noises that it makes. It's just kind of one of those things. It's not, by today's standards, it's not an expensive car. So it's just one of those things you have to deal with. Number going on, that's pretty cut and dry there. As long as you have expectation management with the car, you know that you get what you pay for. Number 2, performance. As these come from the factory, they are pathetic, honestly, by today's standards on how they perform. That 21-year-old F-150 Lightning, when we got this Subaru, that would absolutely blow the doors off of this. And that truck has almost 200,000 miles on it. So, these, even though it's all-wheel drive, they just don't have the power that modern today's standards, kind of people are spoiled to expect. 20 years ago, almost 18 years ago, I guess, when the STI came out, it was a pretty quick car for the day, but really not today. Which brings me to the number 1, complaint I have with these is how weak the factory engine is for handling power. I have, personal experience with this. This is not my first EJ motored car that has blown up. I had a 2012 WRX that blew up at it was basically a stage 2 car. It had a downpipe and an intake and a boost controller on 93 octane, and it just went. Never could figure out why, but it wasn't really knocking. Fast forward, we were hesitant to get this car because of that. In fact, my wife made me a promise that I wouldn't modify this car for at least 2 years because it had a warranty. Well, turns out it had been modified, and we couldn't prove that, but we went round and round with the dealership. They ended up helping us out a little bit. But motor, wife wasn't getting, she was actually driving it. She wasn't getting on it, but it was hot, and she had just filled it up with gas, and all of a sudden the check engine light came on. It went into limp mode. The entire dash lit up on her. Well, she was right by where the dealership where we bought it, which was not a Subaru dealership, by the way, because we bought it used. But dropped it off. They gave her a loaner, and they shipped it off to a Subaru dealership, which actually was out of state, because they didn't trust the one local to us, which is understandable. Anyway, Subaru determined pretty much right off the bat that had a cracked piston, which I kind of figured because it had a misfire code. And anyway, but they refused to warranty it because they pulled the computer, they read the computer and saw that it had been tuned. So fast forward, got the car back, decided to fix it ourselves. Because what had happened was it was basically, this was on us. Always look over your vehicles before you buy them. But we were so happy to get rid of the Raptor that just didn't do our due diligence. It had this Cobb SF intake on it, and it had basically an OTS map on it, is what I configure for stage 1 plus. It wasn't knocking. I verified that after I drove the car later, once we got it fixed. But anyway, it was a off-the-shelf map that we didn't have the access port. I had to buy one. But motor blew, cracked. After I did a compression and leak down test, I figured cylinder number 4 ring lamb was gone, which one day I will eventually tear the old short block apart and look at the damage. But we decided to rebuild it while we were in there. Got a forged rod and piston short block, blah, 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 blah. Did some modifications while I was there. But the big point of this is, that's my big hate of these, is that the factory short blocks just can go. They can go stock. If you're gonna get one of these, either leave it completely stock and under warranty, or just know that you might have to replace a short block. I don't think that you would have any issue warranty-wise with getting an air oil separator, so I would definitely recommend getting one of these. IAG, probably. And maybe do a cylinder 4 cooling mod, which I've done. And I think that the cooling mod in and of itself would have saved us the motor had that done. But that's beside the point. That's pretty much gonna wrap this video up. You know, my 5 things that I just hate about the Subaru WRX STI. So until next time, I'll talk to you later.